So, good afternoon and welcome to the Great Gatsby Writing Lab slash Socratic Seminar. I am joined by Mrs. Burnett.
Hello.
Hello. And we have Faith and Madison with us. So, hello, ladies. They say hello. Okay. Alrighty. So, the whole point of this, the reason why teachers have students read this is because this is the ultimate book about the American dream. Now, when I say that, Madison, Faith, how do you define the American dream, or have you even heard of that term?
Um, yes, I think about the American dream as like someone like in another country, like the conditions over there aren't that good, and they move over here to like get a better job to build a better future. That's what I think about.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Madison?
I agree with her. I feel like the American dream is pretty much looked at as like success and being able to have freedom and build your own lifestyle and kind of just like feel like maybe we have more rights than other people in other countries do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think, Miss Polson? Burnett. This is like
I
therapy
know.
for me, I
So,
guess.
well, remember, my students, they're going to know me as Miss Paulson. Only
Right.
a couple have paid attention that I got married last week.
Okay.
And, um, but I've always thought, like, I was raised on the American dream, meaning that you buy a house, you have a family, you have two cars and a garage to put your cars in. So it's mostly about stuff like home and family and like a white picket fence, like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Two parents and like two and a half kids and all of that. So mostly about money, but also about family. So
Yeah.
money and family.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that is going to be one of the key elements in the book, and that is materialism and how much materials are tied up with that. James Truslow Adams was the first one to actually coin this phrase in Epic of America. And this is how he defined it. The American dream is that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement. So, and that last part's kind of critical too, because is it fair that some people achieve more than others? You have to kind of say yeah, because it's just what you want to accomplish in your life, and if you accomplish your dreams, you should have reached the American dream. So there's actually a couple different ways to look at this. And the first quote comes from Bill Rancic, who was the first winner from The Apprentice. And he said, "The American dream is still alive out there, and hard work will get you there. You don't necessarily have to have an Ivy League education or to have millions of dollars startup money. It can be done with an idea, hard work, and determination." But then we have a contrasting viewpoint, and Tupac Shakur is the one who said this: "The American dream wasn't meant for me because Lady Liberty's a hypocrite. She lied to me, promised me freedom, education, and equality, never gave me nothing but slavery. But now look at how dangerous you made me, calling me a madman because I'm strong and bold." So, which viewpoint is closer to your own? Like state faith.
Mm-hmm.
Are you there, Faith?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking, I agree with Bill.
Uh-huh.
Is you don't need like money and like you don't you like everything that everybody else wants. Like you don't have to have like it just depends on like how determined and how hardworking you are.
Hmm. Okay. Madison, which one do you agree with more?
I agree more with Bill, or like I side more with him, even though I do kind of understand the other one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I do believe that you have to have the mindset and the work and the drive to achieve your own American dream, because you can sit and look and want things that other people have, but you have to work for that yourself.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so we had some discussion boards, and I picked some of these, and I think Mrs. Paulson, did you add a couple here too?
I did, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you could see probably. I was editing as you were presenting last time. I was trying to stay ahead of you.
um, okay, well, so some of these come from my class, some of these come from her class, and the only way anybody's going to know this is yours is if you shout out, "Hey, that's mine!" So that's okay too. Take credit; these are good. The first question was asking, how does Fitzgerald relate Gatsby's dream to the American dream? What seems to be his message about the American dream is expressed in the last two paragraphs of the novel. So let's go to those last two paragraphs, including you, Madison. Here we go. So um, this is where, so Gatsby, Madison, dies because Will and I don't know, I haven't, when I looked at 113, I'm trying to find if this was before or after the accident that kills Myrtle. Has Myrtle
It was
died yet?
after.
Okay, good. So and of course Gatsby takes the fall for that, even though it was Daisy driving the car. So Wilson comes and kills Gatsby, and when they have the funeral for him, Faith, do you remember who shows up to his funeral?
It was Nick, his dad, and like employers and the what he called the old wise men.
Right. Three people. Three people show up, even though, Gatsby held all these parties and there were hundreds of people at these parties where they could drink and eat and have a good time and didn't have to pay anything. And so it really shows, that he really didn't have the relationships with people. Even Daisy did not come to this funeral. So Nick decides that he doesn't want to be in West End anymore, and I don't blame him. And so he's getting ready to leave, but he takes one last kind of look around, and he's on that dock again. And uh, I'm going to back up a paragraph. As I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Does anybody want to talk about the question first before we look at what other people did, or do you want to go right to the discussion board?
We could go to the discussion board.
Okay. All right. So somebody said Fitzgerald related Gatsby's dream to the American dream by showing how in his dream he wants wealth and success, which is the same as the American dream. The difference between the two is that Gatsby wanted to find the woman he loves and be with her. He also uses a symbol in the last two paragraphs, the green light, which is Gatsby's hope about being with Daisy. Fitzgerald's message about the American dream is that it is good and bad. It gives people a reason to work hard, but the goal is not met. Do you agree with that?
Mm, I think I do agree with it because we do strive to do things, but most of the time we don't really like meet our goals.
Right. Madison,
Like sometimes we make like unrealistic goals, and like that's why they don't
ah,
like we don't meet them.
okay. Do you agree with that, Madison?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And what especially the part about the receding part. Um, Ms. Burnett, what is it you're on the carrot? Is that, am I getting that phrase right? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, sort of. I know the idea of like chasing the carrot, but I haven't heard that exact phrase. But that's exactly what I was thinking of, though. The idea of like it's a moving target, or
Yeah.
more of like it's not real. And I think that's what Tupac was talking about. That it's like it's it's not fake, but it may be attainable for some people. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you have privilege or access to things that other people don't. But for everyone else, which is most people, it's it's not real.
Yeah.
It's like on the other side of the water. It's just far enough away that you can see it and it's tempting and you want it and
Mm-hmm.
people around you have it, but you can't get it. Like it's not possible for everyone.
Yeah. And what
That's a more pessimistic view, but yeah.
well, and that's the actual concept of that. The reason the carrot is there is farmers, in order to get their like mules or horses, whatever it is that they're using to farm, if they put a carrot out on a stick and just held that carrot out in front of the animal's going to move toward the carrot to try and get it to eat it. And so they can make that animal go for as long as they want and in any direction they want, and the donkey may or may not get the carrot at the end. It's still under somebody else's control. And
Mhm.
so that's, I think, part of what the green light represents too, is that just what is the green light? And when you're looking at it, the green light is literally where's this green light?
It's like at the dock by Daisy's house.
Yep. Not just Daisy's house, but Tom and Daisy's house.
Yeah, Tom and Daisy's house.
Daisy's married already. Daisy has a husband already. She's now taken in the eyes of society. So, but it seems that he refuses to see what the green light really represents. Whereas green can also, green means go, go for it. But in reality, it, it's a very poor representation of what she means to him.
Mhm.
So somebody else said, even Gatsby wishes to turn the clock back and continue with Daisy, undo the history, and build a better future with a fresh start. This relates to the American dream because Gatsby is a self made man, I think is what this is supposed to be. A story of wealth, rags, a symbolic dream of America. Dutch sailors. He has Dutch sailor's eyes. A fresh green breast of the new world. Its vanished trees. The trees that made way for Gatsby's house had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. New continent in which Europeans or everyone could begin once again and undo past errors. So I like that is, you know, especially the part that the trees made way for Gatsby's house. Can anybody explain kind of what the symbolic nature of that is, what that means?
What do you girls think? What does it just remind you of it all to think about trees being cut down for something else to go there?
It's a tough. There's always family and life going on. It's um, there's a song out there, and I keep forgetting the name of the song, but I keep hearing the refrain from it over and over again. Yeah, building sidewalks. What is that?
Oh,
Um,
it's like a well. There's Counting Crows do. It
yeah,
might be a cover though, but you pay
pave.
paradise to put up a parking lot.
That's the one.
Is
Thank
that it?
you.
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, and pave paradise to put up a parking lot. Does that help any to understand what that phrase is telling us?
Mm,
Still not quite sure.
Sort of a popular topic these days, a little bit with
Right.
climate control
Mm-hmm.
and all and conservation, nature.
Right. What?
Straws makes me think of our big controversy with straws these days.
Yes. Oh,
Can't
definitely.
drink from a straw,
I'm
plastic
so
straw.
mad at that 9-year-old kid in his science project. He's probably in college by now, but um, and you're going to read more about this in the next module with island civilization. But basically, what the concept is, in our quest to have things, to have a nice house, we are destroying the things around us that actually have more beauty, have more meaning for us. Um, that the trees are for everybody, and you can have a picnic under the trees. You can walk in the park and enjoy the trees, listen to the birds in the trees. But if you cut them down so that somebody has a house, to me it seems like almost a selfish gesture. I agree that everybody has to have a house to live in, and for those who don't, that's a necessity. But certainly a mansion, like you see the picture there on the screen, um, who needs a house like that? you know,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, now I don't know, Miss Paulson, if this is you or not, but for the life of me, I don't understand why a woman needs a purse that cost over $200.
Hmm. No, they don't. That's a major one.
I mean, I don't know. It could be me, but what is it about the name Gucci that makes it worth so much more? You know?
True, but sometimes you just can't help it. That's what you want.
Yeah, but I can't see myself doing it. I just
Right.
can't.
Not that. That's thousands of dollars. That is crazy.
Right.
But when you go into those stores, oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. Anyway, um, so let's move on here because there was another one. This Fitzgerald relates Gatsby's dream to the American dream by having the same principles. Gatsby had relatively nothing and worked hard to make it big and have lots of money. His message is that the American dream is a fake idea. He does this by showing how, even though Gatsby was rich, he will never be the kind of rich that Tom and Daisy are. Overall, he puts the American dream in a negative light. I really like that one because it does mention what does this person mean by he's not the same kind of rich that Tom and Daisy are.
like, I think he means like their relationship.
Barely.
Like,
Like Tom and Daisy's relationship.
yeah, Tom and Daisy's relationship.
Mm-hmm. Do they even have a relationship?
I don't really think so because
It's like they like didn't really care for each other.
Yeah, how do we know that?
Because there was a quote that said like Tom and Daisy are careless people. I can't like I don't know what the quote's at.
Well, I think the fact that both Tom and Daisy look at other people,
Yeah.
Tom has affairs, Daisy's kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
There's no relationship there.
Hmm.
Also, the richness may also refer to the old money versus new money. Can either
Hmm.
of you explain what the difference is between the new money and the old money?
Old money is like you're born into like a rich family, and like new money, like you had to build yourself up. Kind of.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And can those two worlds ever come together?
No.
Mm-mm, not at all. In fact, now I want to do this now because I'm curious, but have either of you two seen the movie Jaws?
I haven't.
I don't think so.
Don't you feel old, Miss? um, I laugh because Jaws came out in 1975, and it's the first movie ever really to be labeled blockbuster because everybody had to go see it. It was one of the first movies where people did literally line up around the block to go and see this, and it broke all kinds of records. And I only mention it because there's a line in there where they are on an island in that New England area. So it's a small island, and the sheriff has just recently been transferred there from New York. And he and his wife are there talking with friends, and she asks one of them, well, when do I get to be an islander? And she said, never. You weren't born here. You're not ever going to be an islander. And that's kind of what this new money, old money is. The old money is established. It is privileged. It's like our own version of royalty. But Gatsby got his. In fact, how does Gatsby get his money? Do you remember?
Um, through like drugstores.
So, yeah. Well, we're getting there. That's kind of like his legitimate cover, but that's not where the money was seriously coming from. What did he sell?
Alcohol.
Yep, during Prohibition. So remember, during this time, I don't know how. Do you know how long Prohibition lasted, Miss Burnett?
That's a good question. Less than 10 years. I feel like it's like six, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Um, and ironically, during this time period of the Jazz Age, uh, where people were told there will be no alcohol sold under any circumstances in any state. And so the manufacture of alcohol was happening in Canada and it needed to be shipped down into the United States. And so that's actually the way Gatsby gets his money. The drugstores are kind of like the front. So, and it was a drug. Alcohol is a drug. So you go to the drugstore, but you were buying alcohol that you weren't really supposed to have. And that's what the term bootlegger is. The bootlegger is the one who brings it from somewhere else into a place it's not supposed to be. And so that's how Gatsby makes his money.
It
It's
was 7 years, by the
7
way.
years.
So in 7 years, he made all that money in
Yeah.
a short amount of time.
And he's still able to give a lot of it away. He's having these lavish parties with all this alcohol served at it. They weren't supposed to have it. So um, that kind of it is that a commentary from its Fitzgerald though about is that what does that have anything to do with why he can't achieve the American dream because he got his money illegally? What do you think?
Um, I think it does because he like basically he wasn't supposed to be doing it so it's basically kind of like dirty money.
Mm-hmm. So if he had obtained it in a legal way, do you think he would have been more successful?
Yeah, I think he would have had more respect towards the way he built himself up.
Okay. Now I wonder about Daisy, because with Daisy, I don't know. Daisy has always seemed so shallow to me, just so. But okay, let's look at this next question here, because maybe this can kind of help us also understand about Gatsby and the way Fitzgerald saw the American dream. What does the novel say about materialism? What, if any, are the similarities between the 1920s American society and the 21st century American society with regard to materialism? So this person responded, the novel is in my mind based off of materialism because the ideal lifestyle was to have what Gatsby had, a big house, fancy cars, luxurious parties, etc. Some similarities that we still get stuck in the idealism that the most sought after lifestyle is the one where you are wealthy with nice cars, nice house, nice cars, nice job, etc. Those things have not changed at all in today's society. You agree?
Yeah, I do agree. Everybody wants the newest and latest and greatest expensive things.
Hmm. Now, to be honest with you, I'll be honest first, and then you can be honest if you want to. Um, in some ways, I agree. In some ways, I don't. I Okay. I did go out and buy a new car when I got my master's degree, but I didn't mind getting it at CarMax, mainly because it was a fairly new car that had a lien on it, and it wasn't driven for several years. It was like a 2015, but it had less than 8,000 miles on it, and it wouldn't sell because it was gold. It was a gold car. And I'm thinking, this is a pretty car. But there are other people who they have to have the newest and latest car.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I feel like they just want to be known for having expensive things. That's just what they want their um what is it called?
Status? Like a
Yeah, their
status?
status to be.
Good. What makes status? That's a good point that you bring up. How do we look at status?
Mm, status is kind of what makes or breaks you, kind
Hmm.
of
Yeah, but it is how other people see you. So it's like
yeah.
you need to have other people see you as successful rather than knowing you're successful yourself.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was Fitzgerald's message. What do you think?
Mm, yeah, I kind of do think that was his message.
That we have to see ourselves, that we need to see ourselves through other people rather
Yeah.
than looking at what we already have attained and achieved for ourselves. Do you think that is is it the same as it was then as it is now, or is it has it changed any?
I think it's still the same.
Okay.
I think social media has brought this idea back even bigger, right? That we have a new, a kind of a public way to portray ourselves
Mm-hmm.
that may not even actually be true. Like we always state the best pictures and take pictures. There are people out there who take all kinds of pictures and have social media influence who see nothing like what they have online. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They used to have a show called The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and that it was all about, and it not necessarily media stars. It could have been just about anybody, who had all these cars and houses and pools and everything. And why does somebody need two swimming pools? You know, it's
And why do we like to watch about them?
I
Like
know.
keeping up with the Kardashians. It's
Yes, yes, and
thrilling.
these weddings, these outlandish weddings that are a nice wedding is expensive enough, you know, but you have to have the dress has to be this dress, and it has to and it's costing like $13,000 or more. I mean, I I had a dress. I think mine was like 500. It didn't need one stitch of altering. I wore it the one day. I put it away. I put it. Then we moved, and I put it in the shed where there were cockroaches, and it got all in there. So I wound up throwing it away. So, but it still was very nice for that one day. But it didn't need to be really expensive. Um,
Yeah.
okay, don't get me started on materialism. Hey, here's another one about materialism. The theme of materialism and wealth to develop a clear idea that even though money can have a lot of value and make people powerful, it is not in any case a leading factor towards happiness. It is evident through our own society, but it also wants Daisy, and the accumulation of wealth and things is associated with this desire. I like that. So this person is kind of inferring that Daisy is a possession rather than a person, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think that's how he sees her, or do you think he truly loves her?
Yeah, I think he sees her as a possession.
You do?
Yeah.
Why? What gives you that clue?
It's just he's like he doesn't need her to say that he loves her. He just needs her to say that that she doesn't love Tom. So that's
Ah,
kind of like what gave me the idea that he thinks of her as like a possession. Like he doesn't really love her.
very good. That's a good one. I like that one. Um, and then this is so. I think these two different ones, Mrs. Burnett.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's two different students.
all right. What the novel says about materialism is shown through the rich people like Daisy and them, and how materialism is a devotion to material wealth like money, cars, and houses. But it comes at the cost of intellectual, moral, and spiritual principles. Oh, I like that. A lot of the characters in the novel are completely devoured and engulfed by materialism and the need for more wealth and more materialistic things. A lot of the rich people in this story aren't necessarily cruel or mean, but they are just careless, and that can be more terrifying and mean than outright cruelty. Wow. What do you think of that one?
I agree.
Why?
Honestly, worse than being cruel.
Yeah. That kind of cold, distant,
Hmm.
especially when you look at Wilson. Um, and we're going to get to that shortly, but think about how Wilson is so different from everybody else in this book and who Wilson really represents. And we'll be talking about some of the characters in a bit. Here's another one. I think materialism has stayed the same since the 20s because there is always the pursuit of wealth and riches wherever you go. People are obsessed with the idea of having a lot of material wealth. In the book, the message implied is that material wealth is insignificant. When Gatsby obtained his wealth, he was unsatisfied. He loved Daisy, but even though he was rich, she was nowhere in sight for 5 years, and he was lonely in the midst of all his riches. Do you agree that he was lonely with his riches?
Yes, I do agree that he was lonely because when he was at his parties, he didn't really enjoy himself. Like it wasn't because people that usually they feel like big fancy parties to brag, but he wasn't bragging. He didn't seem happy at his own parties.
Right. Very good. Okay, the third question was, what are some of the differences between old money and new money characters in the novel? Is this distinction important in today's society? So some differences between old money and new money are that old money characters like Tom and Daisy never had to work. They just got money whether it was inherited or given to them. They did not worry about having a falling out or a bad situation that money would not help. They also did not need anyone. They also did not need anyone. The character saw that having money would give them the satisfaction of all they need. The new money characters had to work at many jobs, they had setbacks, and a family that could not give them all they wanted. They also could not get into trouble because if there was no money, they would not be able to find a way out. The characters like Gatsby cared about others. Money was not the only thing that they wanted, they also wanted relationships. So do you agree with that old money people do not seek out relationships?
Like old money people, they just go like wherever the money is, so they can like keep stacking their money up, so that they won't have to worry if anything did happen.
hmm How do you see them as and I watch a lot of movies where this is the stereotype, that the senator is going to bail out their son or daughter that got into trouble, and there's so many plots around that um, and even in this, what was that scandal last year? Who are the ones from Full House there that got in trouble?
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't remember their names because I didn't know them that well, but
yeah,
yeah, they got in big trouble for faking college admissions information.
right. And it was all about what?
About her trying to pay her daughter's way into college.
Just because and you can't. I mean, okay, colleges are hard enough to get into. The big colleges are hard to get into. They're highly competitive,
Mm-hmm.
and but why then is it so necessary to have the degree from that college? Are we saying that the more money you pay for your education, the better your education is? Or is it possible to get a good education from a place that, will accept you for who you are?
Well, I think that it's possible to get a good education from like colleges that will accept you, but like also, um, honestly, I feel like you can get the same education,
Yeah.
like this level of education from any college. I don't really what college you go to.
Yeah. Well, and colleges have so many different focuses, and there's, their programs. That's why in fact, you guys should start looking now. What do you see yourself doing 5, 10 years from now, and then find the colleges that offer you the best program. It's not the one with the biggest names necessarily, um, but it's what you want for your life. It's not that you have to go to Stanford because Stanford's the place to go. What does Stanford have to offer you? That's what you're really wanting to ask.
Mm-hmm.
um, Old money characters such as Tom, Daisy, and Jordan seem to have less respect for money. They don't take responsibility for their actions and tend to throw money to solve their problems. They are more careless about humanity. New money characters such as Gatsby had to work hard to obtain their money. Gatsby had cared more about humanity and his money. He'd experienced the hard work that goes into the American dream. This made him have more respect for money. I think this distinction is important in today's society because it shows which people truly worked hard to get on top of society. It draws a line that separates the hard workers from the lazy people in society. How do you respond to that?
think this is a common idea. It's sort of a work ethic, like from the greatest generation, the group that went through the war.
Mm-hmm.
You had to work hard. You have to work hard and take care of what you earn versus like I mean, I think if you look at your own life, you can sort of feel that. If you had to earn something, you sort of or pay for it yourself. You get your first job and save up a little bit of money and buy something nice for yourself. You really take care of it
Mm-hmm.
versus if somebody just gave you something and you know it might be expensive, but you didn't really have to work to get it. You maybe treat it a little less carefully,
Mm-hmm.
so you have a little bit less respect for it.
And I'm almost wondering if Gatsby, because this would imply that Gatsby worked hard for his money. I agree he worked harder for his money than the Buchanans did, but I'm wondering how hard he actually worked if he's going into bootlegging.
Mm-hmm.
If we accept that even work that may be going against society, is that still valid work um, as long as it helps you provide for your family, uh, provide for your needs? What do you think?
Mm,
Can you repeat the question?
Well, let me ask it this way: is Gatsby one of these hard workers? Would you define Gatsby as a hard worker?
Mm, yes and no, because when he started out, he didn't really have much money, and then Cody took him in, and then like that's kind of when he started working hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then um, he started getting into the bootlegging business, and um, that's when I Tom when he was when on they were talk like arguing about the affair that Daisy had with Gatsby, and he said that someone in the bootlegging business with Gatsby went to jail, and like Gatsby just let him like take the fall basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now he does take the fall for Daisy, so
Yeah.
maybe in a way that's kind of like restitution. So there is some value there, but yeah, it's kind of hard to tell with him. Okay, so as I said before, there is a lot of symbolism in this book. The whole book itself is just symbol, symbol, symbol. Um, you have the symbols like the green light, which we've talked about already. What about Doctor Doctor T? What's Doctor the
Dr. T.J. Fulberg, I think that was his name.
Yeah. So what's symbolic about that? In fact, somebody asked me that particular question on the assignment about what is symbolic about this, and why does Wilson see this differently?
Mm,
What's the billboard? What is on the billboard?
I think it says God sees everything.
That's what Wilson says, but that's not what's on the billboard. What's on the billboard?
Where is it?
Because what is it an advertisement for?
I'm a doctor. Do you
Hmm.
remember? Um,
I'm trying to look for it too.
yeah, I'm trying to look for it. If your cover is the same as mine, I mean, it's kind of a big hint on the cover.
Yep.
It's, this is why I will just throw a shout out for annotating your book with sticky notes and stuff. This is exactly why.
Yeah.
Not that you would always know what questions you might be asked, but when you mark up your book with notes and stuff, it helps you find the pages that have information that you might be looking for.
Okay, page 23. But above the gray land and the spasms of bleak dust which drift endlessly over it, you perceive after a moment the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non existent nose. Evidently, some wild wag of an oculist set them there to fatten his practice in the borough of Queens and then sank down himself into eternal blindness or forgot them and moved away. But his eyes, dimmed a little by many paintless days under sun and rain, brood on over the solemn dumping ground. So, from that, can you determine, first of all, what it originally was advertising?
Was there like glasses?
Yes. So the oculist is basically the person who measures you for your glasses. But because of what does it mean by this oculist sank down himself into eternal blindness? Or forgot them and moved away? What does that mean?
Um, I think that like might mean like his business wasn't like very good.
Probably wasn't even in business anymore
Yeah.
because that so he may be dead. That's the sank down himself into eternal blindness, or forgot them and moved away. I'm sure you've seen, especially in there's certain parts of town where there are these signs that it's been quite a while before somebody put something on them, and there was one that I kept driving by a lot in Oildale, and it was for a gas station, and I think the last price on that gas station was like $1.06. And so of course the station wasn't there, the pumps weren't there, but the sign was still there. So that's what the literal sign is. And then if we go to that page 25, um, hello, Wilson, old man, said Tom, slapping him jovially on the shoulder. How's business? I can't complain, answered Wilson unconvincingly. When are you going to sell me that car? Next week. I've got my man working on it. Let's see. I'm trying to find where he says that God sees everything. Because this is our first hint that Wilson kind of has a suspicion. But at some point he does say God sees everything. So what is being said here then? What is the representation?
Um, Seems like that. Um, you may not know what happened with Myrtle, but God.
Yeah, and but he's thinking that it's this sign is the representation of God, that God is watching over the Valley of Ashes and all that's happening here. When in fact, it's just an old billboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's for Wilson, there's a deeper meaning to it. For everybody else, it's just a billboard. So, um, so that's something that's symbolic. What about the people themselves, though? What does Gatsby represent himself? What? How? How are we supposed to see Gatsby?
Um, as like this, like I guess we're supposed to see Gatsby as like um people who want the American dream.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. In fact, they're the ones who are successful enough to achieve what they want,
Mm-hmm.
even if they think they may not have it yet. Good. What about Daisy?
Um, I don't know about Daisy.
Well, what do you know about her? What is it that you can go with?
um, like her personality.
She has one?
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof? Yeah, and you had said it earlier, Faith. You said that she was like a possession for Gatsby. She really is more like a thing. She has, I mean, I don't know. Do you think Daisy at one point truly loved Gatsby?
I think like maybe like
You phased out. What was your response? Yeah. In fact, you're even fading yourself, Miss Paulson. If you can get back to the microphone there. Unless it's my speaker. I wonder if it's my speaker. Are you getting a lot of static?
a little bit, not a lot.
Okay. I'm getting a lot, so.
Yeah.
I think Daisy represents the treasure, the things, the materials that we crave, where there's really no substance to them. They look pretty, they're shiny, but in the end, what are they really? You know, it's like she's just. I don't know if she ever really truly loved him. Maybe she did, but with her being old money, it was like maybe she was just trying to um, experiment with what was forbidden. You know, he really kind of was forbidden fruit because he was not old money, and he never will
Yeah.
be. So, okay, Nick. Oh, go ahead, Miss Paulson. What did you want to add?
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think of like of Gatsby as representing like desire for wealth and power and um, happiness, even, and Daisy's like an object,
Mm-hmm.
objectified. Like she does. I think that's why she doesn't have much personality. She's beautiful and but she's not really that good. She's not really that bad. She's more like the pretty sparkly object of somebody's desire.
Right. Yeah. So, what does that make Nick?
Interesting. Interesting. I don't know.
Let me ask you this: Does have you do you remember what the difference is between static and dynamic characters? You remember anything about that? I know I threw it in last year, but I don't. It wasn't that much. I don't know if you remember. So a static character is one that never changes. But a dynamic character, because of what that character goes through, does change. So that person is a different character from what he or she was from the beginning. So would you say, so if we were to look at it that way, is Gatsby a static or a dynamic character?
Uh, I think that he's a dy- dynamic character.
So that means he changes. How does he change? And don't tell me he
Mm.
dies.
He changes like once he gets like wealthy, like he has everything, but he still like doesn't. Well, actually, I feel like he changes when he meets Daisy.
Okay. From what to what?
Um, like I guess you could say he was happy when he was with Daisy, and then after like he knew he couldn't have Daisy anymore, and he like started feeling like unhappy, like depressed.
Okay. Then what about Daisy? Is Daisy dynamic or static?
I think Daisy's static.
I agree. She doesn't seem to be any different than, because I think if she had changed, she would have been at Gatsby's funeral.
Yeah,
Yeah. But what about Nick?
I feel like Nick is a static character too, kind
Really?
of.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like he's still like the same like after everything that happened. Like loved Gatsby in the end.
Okay. Now, try to go back to the beginning, though, before he meets Gatsby. How does he describe himself as the narrator in this? He tells his audience he's what?
I think he said he was like vulnerable.
He was vulnerable. So in the first line, he says, "In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone," he told me, "just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages you've had." And then he kind of goes on to say, "So that's why I never judge, and I'm a pretty good judge of character," or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Is he doing the same thing? Is he doing that as well at the end of the book?
Um, I think that I don't know like if he like still does that towards the end.
Okay. Um, let's see. I'm looking now at the bottom of 179, and this is before he leaves. Remember that he's leaving East Egg. He doesn't want to stay there anymore. So on the last night, with my trunk packed and my car sold to the grocer, I went over and looked at that huge, incoherent failure of a house once more. Sounds pretty judgmental to me.
Oh yeah,
On the
yeah,
white
that's judgmental.
steps, an obscene word scrawled by some boy with a piece of brick stood out clearly in the moonlight, and I erased it, drawing my shoe raspingly along the stone. Then I wandered down to the beach and sprawled out on the sand. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when I first picked out the green light. So it seems like he's really thinking about everything that he has gone through.
Yeah,
I know that his reaction of meeting Gatsby's dad and being only one of three people who were there at the funeral, that seemed to really impact him.
yeah.
So, dynamic or static?
Did you hear that too?
Still say static?
No, I think he's dynamic.
Okay. I think so too. And that's, he declares himself as a reliable narrator at the beginning, but the ironic thing is that he's kind of blind to all this materialism going on until the end. I think by the end, he certainly becomes that reliable narrator that he claimed to be in the beginning, but now he really is. Wilson. What does Wilson represent?
Mm, I think he represents like those who want the American dream but like couldn't achieve it.
So do you think that Wilson does not achieve the American dream?
Well, because we're talking about like materialism, and
Hmm.
Wilson didn't really have that much.
Nope. In fact, all he had was what?
Um, the car garage. Is that the-
No, that wasn't. I mean,
Oh no, was it Myrtle?
Myrtle. He
Yeah.
loved Myrtle. Myrtle couldn't care less for him, but he loved her. And Tom
Mhm.
took her away, and then she was killed, and that was his dream. Because we had talked earlier, remember we said before that the American dream is that we ourselves have the ability to work for and get family, shelter, have people around us who love us. Wilson had that, but then it was taken away from him by the very people who are going after the materialism in the American dream.
Mhm.
So it seems like both Gatsby and Wilson may be the same symbolic character. It just depends on what your definition of the American dream is, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I know. What do you think, Miss Paulson? Am I feeding ideas into their heads here?
No, I think that's interesting. I haven't heard that before, but that's interesting. It's like a foil, the
Yes.
literary term. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they reflect off of each other. They're two different sides of some of the same characteristics.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, what is the book's main message? What does Fitzgerald want us to learn from this?
Hmm. I think it's like to have like all these different materialistic things to be happy.
Mm-hmm. In fact, it only makes you lonelier.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a hard book for me to keep reading year after year after year because it's it's depressing, you know. But I think what I learned from it is just that my happiness is not tied up in things. My happiness is tied up in people,
Yeah.
and that's I think if we understand that, then And we know what happens to those people who get everything they want. What is it that the depression rate among lottery winners is very high, and most of them lose that money within a very short amount of time because that's not where happiness is.
Yeah.
So, Faith, would you recommend this book to somebody saying, somebody says, oh, well, you know what? I never got a chance to read that. Should I just go ahead and read it? What would you say?
I would say read it at your own risk.
Do you want to explain what the risk is?
um, like it's just depressing.
Yeah.
Like it's just depressing to read.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of the thing behind modernism. You know, when we started this module, it was all about what is modernism. This
Yeah.
is modernism.
Yeah.
This is completely modernism, and I am not a modernist fan. There are books that are even more depressing than this. Mrs. Paulson, did you read Sister Carrie, Theodore Dreiser? No?
No.
Don't. Or McTeague, or, oh gosh, because I took a modernist literature class, and it was, I still get just chills thinking about all those books that I read because I don't want to read them again. Um, and authors like Hemingway and Faulkner, they kind of fall into this category. And a lot of them were alcoholics. A lot of them wrote as a way to kind of deal with this horrible feeling of loss that they, and this is all coming from, the post-war, and we're talking World War One. So that, there were no big wars up to then other than the Civil War, but uh, that seemed to have some kind of sense behind it. So modernist literature it's not happy stuff. So okay, so here is the writing task. The Great Gatsby has been called the greatest American novel of all time. Even F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote to his editor saying, I think my novel is about the best American novel ever written. But the book wasn't an immediate sensation. In fact, he never really realized any kind of financial success from this book. So, why is this book now often referred to as the great American novel? What did Fitzgerald understand about the book and its power? Maybe what makes it so great is that, like other classic novels, it shows us important truths about ourselves that aren't connected to specific time and place. In the case of Fitzgerald's novel, the author gives a candid and bold account of the American dream. In a literature analysis essay, respond to these questions. How does Gatsby represent the American dream? What does the novel have to say about the condition of the American dream in the 1920s? In what ways do the themes of dreams, wealth, and time relate to each other in the novel's exploration of the idea of America? There are so many directions to go in with this. So, what I've given you is kind of an outline suggestion. It's only a suggestion. You can craft this any way you want, but what I see is, the introduction is always standard, it's the hook and the claim. The claim will be about Fitzgerald's representation of the American dream. How does he define it? You don't need to define it at this point. You'll have a spot to do that in, but for the beginning, you would want to talk about what he thinks the American dream is. You will need at least 2 body paragraphs. Now, the 3 bullets there represent topics that you could write a single paragraph about. So, the condition of the American dream in the 1920s in this setting, the symbolism used in the novel to depict the American dream, connections and or differences between Fitzgerald's vision and your vision of the dream today. Mrs. Burnett, can you think of any to add to this list?
Not off the top of my head. I didn't
Okay.
spend some time thinking.
Okay.
Inside the unit, and I handout to keep them in a little file. But there is a handout lesson 2.4.3 that has literary definitions,
Mm-hmm.
and I think those would be very helpful to have either open while you're writing or print them out and have them next to you. It will give you the language that you will want to have and talk,
Okay.
the symbolism and the connections and visions and all that. It will be very
Yeah. Good. The conclusion is probably the best place to put what you believe the American dream is and what we could learn from Fitzgerald's novel. But we want, since this is literature analysis, we want you to focus on the novel itself. Remember that the body paragraph is going to have these bullet points. I'm often asked, how long does this have to be? How many paragraphs? How many pages? How many words? I don't count. That's kind of silly. And so this is what I look for, though. Topic sentence that states the main idea for the paragraph. And then what I call my chunks, the first piece of evidence that demonstrates the concept and an explanation of how that evidence is related to the topic. And then I do it again with a second piece of evidence, preferably from another point in the book that also supports that concept and more explanation. And then finally, the concluding statement that summarizes the concept and how it connects to the next idea or claim. Mrs. Burnett, do you see anything else that I should add to this or change?
I don't think so. Other than I just also want to encourage you, Faith, and Medicine, and all the students listening to be mindful of the evidence that and the support that you use. So
Mhm.
when you use parts from the book, quotations, I pointed out a lot in my feedback when you write, but have the quote as evidence and then paraphrase it in your own words and then explain how that supports the main idea. So think of it kind of a little formula, but it's important for the reader to see the quote, introduce it, see the quote, don't forget the page numbers, then explain it, say it again in your own words, and then explain how that's important to the main idea.
Yeah. And I did give you a sample paragraph that basically does just that. So you can kind of use this as a mentor text if you want. Fitzgerald seemed to believe that the American dream, while visible to everyone, is not attainable. That, of course, is my topic sentence. At the end of the novel, and this is known as the lead-in. It's always important for your reader to know where exactly this is happening, what's happening in the story. So you do want to give them kind of a signpost of where this is. At the end of the novel, Nick narrates Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. Notice how I put the page number there, and I didn't use, well, I don't know, Miss Burnett, if you're going to want them to use Fitzgerald or not. My philosophy is if I'm only writing about this one novel and I've put the title and the author in the introduction, from then on, I just need the page number. Is would,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would agree. It'd be too much. You don't need to keep repeating his last name.
right.
Yeah.
Just a page number is fine. Now I'm getting into my analysis of why I picked that quote. And notice I don't use the words. The reason I picked this quote was I'm just going right in for it. The green light here represents Gatsby's dream of Daisy, but even though he knows that the green light represents Daisy's own life, her home, and her life with Tom, he still strove to possess her. Nick speaks of how this dream, quote, recedes before us, end quote. Notice that I only took part of that piece of quote because that's really where the meat is. Yet we still, oh wait, I'm sorry. No, I did take more than that. That quotation mark should be there. Nick shouldn't have an E on his end, on the end of his name. Yet we still pursue its boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. So there's my second quote. And take this one out here. Sorry, always an English teacher, right, Miss Burnett? Always got her
Absolutely.
correct.
Never perfect. But this is a good example
Never
of writing
perfect.
process. It never ends.
Okay. So Gatsby was so focused on his past with Daisy that he did not see the green light for what it truly was, Daisy Buchanan's life with her husband. Fitzgerald indicates that because we are not focused on this receding goal, because we are focused in the past, we stand no chance of achieving this dream. So that's what a body paragraph would look like. And so you're going to have two of those minimum, and then your introduction and your conclusion. So the first draft is not due until Tuesday, March 3rd. So you do have some time on this to go back through the novel and carefully find the evidence that you want. Peer reviews will be assigned the very next minute. So on Thursday, March 5th at midnight, that's when the peer reviews go out. And then they're due that Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. This way, people know, you've got this time to get it in. I do sometimes get some emails that say, "Hey, my partner hasn't reviewed mine yet," and I say that's because it's not due yet. So just keep that in mind. Anything you want to add to this, Mrs. Burnett?
Work on that first draft before the third, so take a little bit of time each day and write a good essay for it.
Okay. Do you ladies have any questions for us now that you have us on the line?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Madison, what about you?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck on your essays. And if you have any questions, just please make sure that you let me know. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Burnett. We appreciate all you do as well.
You too, Mrs.
Okay.
Campbell. It's good to be with you. Bye,
Okay.
girls.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.